When you operate in an international setting, you meet and collaborate with various individuals with diverse backgrounds worldwide. But have you ever contemplated the behavior of a person with another cultural background, thinking to yourself, I just don't get that? Or perhaps you're an expat, you moved to another country and you are now facing the challenge of trying to adapt to the local traditions and rules while they're very different from your own. For communication to work well worldwide, we need more than just good language skills. We also need to understand and respect different cultures. If you want to be a leader in a multinational organization, or you just want to perfect your skills at finding common ground with various people from various countries, this video will provide a data-based background. Today, I would love to share with you a tool that might help you to better understand people from other cultures. And by knowing about and understanding those cultural differences, we can communicate better and build stronger relationships in our communities. A crucial side note: this video was not made with the goal of labeling people in a certain way. By no means I'm saying that all the Russians are like that or all the Dutch are like that. Even though you might share the same cultural background with a lot of people from your country, you might be different, and that's okay. We're all different. Yet we're discussing general background here, and I believe that understanding this background might actually equip us with tools that help us to avoid a lot of uncertainty and ambiguity, communicate better, and authentically connect with each other. In this video, I'm going to focus on the 3 cultures I'm familiar with. Those are Russia, where I lived for a lot of years, the US, where I worked, and the Netherlands, where I live now. Are those cultures different? Absolutely. But how exactly do you describe those differences? I'll be comparing those 3 countries by using a tool developed by a Dutch social psychologist, Hofstede, who was also a former IBM employee and a professor of organizational anthropology and international management at Maastricht University in the Netherlands. He's known for his pioneering research on cross-cultural groups and organizations. The tool we are going to be using today shows the effects of a society's culture on the values of its members and how these values relate to behavior. Hofstede described the main underlying differences of national cultures along 6 dimensions: power distance, individualism, uncertainty avoidance, a drive to achievement and success, long-term orientation, and indulgence. I'll leave you guys the link below and you can explore this tool further. But now let's select our 3 countries and explore the cultural differences, shall we? The first dimension is power distance. Power distance is basically how people in a country feel about the gap between those who have power and those who don't. It's mostly about the inequality. When power distance is high, it means that people are okay with the order of things, and they don't usually question or challenge those in charge. When it's low, it suggests that people are more likely to question authority and believe that power should be distributed more equally. On a scale from 0 to 100, what do you think are the scores for our countries? Now that's something I very much expected. Russia scoring 93 is a nation where power holders are very distant in society. This country is extremely centralized. 80% of all financial potential is focused in Moscow, and the huge discrepancy between the less and the more powerful people leads to the great importance of status symbols. This is just true. There is a huge gap between the people who have power and those who don't. And those who don't, for them, power feels distant and inaccessible. When you face injustice on a daily basis but can't do anything about it, you become depressed fast. In a government organization or a company that is close to the government, these people don't understand the rationale behind certain decisions. And those in power are too busy keeping their power. Moreover, they have absolutely no desire to share some kind of rationale or just more background behind their decisions because, well, if you have all the information, you are basically a threat. This leads to the sense of learned helplessness, where a lot of people behave mechanically, they execute tasks without thought, only because they were instructed to do so. This sense of learned helplessness is reflected in a phrase, "initiative is punishable." Meaning it's better to do everything your manager asks from you without thinking, because that's the only way you won't get in trouble. And of course, this lack of respect goes both ways. Employees feel undervalued, so they basically despise the managers.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know how this machine worked.
By the way, I know companies where yelling at an employee would be almost considered normal. All in all, power is truly important, and those who have it are focused on not sharing it with anyone. It's worth saying, though, that I worked in an international IT company and I've never faced that kind of attitude. IT is a whole different story. But if we look at the atmosphere in the workplace in general, especially in government organizations, that's kind of the picture. Another important point is that Russia has a cult of status symbols. I guess you've noticed. If you want people to respect you, or at least pretend they do, just being yourself was never enough. And what a better way to do that than with a cool status symbol, like an expensive suit or a very expensive watch or a golden toilet? And you kind of get accustomed to that. And that's why when I moved to the Netherlands, it was extremely difficult to adapt to the local culture. I mean, here, the status symbols, they just don't exist. No, seriously, you can have a millionaire sitting right next to you in a local restaurant. And Russians, especially those in power, would go like, what's the point of being a millionaire if you can show it, if you can throw it in people's faces? Also, one of the visual differences that reflects this power distance in a very visual manner is the presence or the absence of the fence. In Russia, there are fences everywhere, practically everywhere. And if you see a nice house without fence, guess what? It's a gated community. Moscow is a constellation of gated communities and high-rises where access is only enabled for the residents. And in the Netherlands, it's like, where did all the fences go? Jokes aside, Dutchies, you are just psychologically sane people. You don't need any status symbols to feel good about yourself, and that's precious. Both the Netherlands and the US are pretty much on the same scale of 38 to 40. When it comes to the relationship with those in power, you don't face that much inequality, and you hold power holders accountable. Just please don't lose that. Individualism. This index looks at how much people in a society stick together. It's about if people see themselves as more of an I, taking care of just themselves and their close family, or as a we, being part of bigger groups that support each other in return for loyalty. In individualist places, it's all about looking out for yourself and your immediate family. In collectivist places, it's about being part of a team or a group that looks after one another. And we have another outlier, and not just outlier, a country that scores 100 out of 100 on a scale of individualism. The Netherlands, with a very high score of 100, is an individualist society. This means that there is a high preference for a loosely knit social framework in which individuals are expected to take care of themselves and their immediate families only. Are you from the Netherlands? What do you think about this score? I'm kind of surprised Dutch society scored 100 while the American society only scored 60. I wasn't aware that there's too big of a difference. Although from what I've seen, the perspective of the Netherlands seems to be accurate. And it's really interesting how that's reflected in the residency rules. For example, I can invite my mother here because she's my mother, for example, for her to be able to see her grandchildren. But I can't submit visa documentation for my stepfather, who's not considered my family. Another example, I have a couple of friends whose daughter is nearing adulthood. The couple moved to the Netherlands from Russia with their daughter, and they're on a highly skilled migrant visa. And basically, if she doesn't enroll in a university, she'll be forced to leave the country because she's no longer family. I understand you have your reasons behind it, but that's just strange. And regarding Russia, I can again confirm everything. Although I would make a difference between such large cities as Moscow or St. Petersburg and the other part of Russia, like real Russia. The cities are, of course, more individualistic, yet for most Russians, family is important. Important in terms of face life challenges together and helping to one another. Grandparents don't just spend time with their grandchildren when they want to. They are almost expected to help young parents to take care of their children, bringing them to schools, hospitals, or acting as daycare, basically. And parents often address the housing needs for their children, either purchasing a small apartment and gifting it to them, or making an initial mortgage payment. And as I said, I'm really surprised the US scored that low. What does it say? At the same time, communication is informal, direct, and participative to a degree. The society is loosely knit, in which the expectation is that people look after themselves and their immediate families only, and should not rely too much on authorities for support. There is also a high degree of geographical mobility in the United States. Geographical mobility is something that fascinated me in the US since Russia is too centralized. If you want to build a successful career there, you basically have two options, Moscow and St. Petersburg. So I kind of always admired in the US that there's life in other places too. People there have opportunities. In the Netherlands, it's just the same, but just the distances are different. I was always amazed at how differences in mindset manifest in the language we're using daily. If Russians go out with their friends, they will say we instead of I and friends or me and friends. So family, friends, and often neighborhoods are extremely important in facing life challenges. Now we'll stop here, but there's too much to say about the other 4 dimensions, so I will create another video, part 2, where we'll continue to explore the cultural differences. Whatever country you're from, I'm excited to hear your viewpoint. Do you agree with the descriptions from this website? I'm excited to hear from you. Thanks for watching, subscribe to the channel to avoid missing part 2, and see you next week.